Hey, where is that guy? Ugh, this is so unprofessional. We have a review to do. Wait, I have an idea. BigBlackHatMan! Come back, BigBlackHatMan! Whoa! I can't believe that worked. It didn't work. It was just a really bad joke. Not that bad. I mean, it could have been worse. Okay, it wasn't particularly good. For those who haven't figured it out, we're talking about number 3 on the AFI's Top 10 Westerns list, Shane on BigBlackHatMan vs. AFI! So what is Shane about? Well, mostly it's about Shane, played by Alan Ladd, the titular character, as you may well expect, but he's actually not the driving force behind the story. Now, the driving force behind the story is the Sterrett family, Joe, Marion, and little Joey. Joe Sterrett, played by Van Heflin, is a farmer looking to make his way in the world. However, he happens to be in the way of a big-time rancher named Rufus Riker. Now, Riker actually has a legitimate gripe against the farmers, unlike a lot of villains in these films, because, well, his open range is getting closed off, and he needs it to have a bigger herd so he can make more money, so he can just make it in a world that really doesn't support his kind of way of thinking anymore. As the conflict happens to be escalating to violence, Shane just happens to show up. Shane is clearly a gunfighter. I mean, everything about him just screams it. They just about beat you over the head with it in the opening part of the film. But he doesn't really want to enter in that role. He wants to just help out Joe. And he likes Marion, and Joey looks up to him, and there's a whole lot of things going on between him and the family. Well, things just keep getting worse between Rufus Riker and Joe Sterrett, so, well, it's pretty clear war's going to take place. Riker is actually the one who elevates things by bringing in Jack Wilson, a gunfighter from Cheyenne, who's a particularly violent and virulent person. With such an element brought into the mix, it's only a matter of time before fighting breaks out, and Shane has to decide what role he wants to play in all this. He has to decide if he wants to be a gunfighter or just a friend. And yeah, that's where the movie's conflict takes place, around who Shane is and what he wants to be now. Being a gunfighter just isn't good enough for him in a lot of ways, and, well, you'd have to see the movie to get the gist of that. In fact, I'd actually recommend reading the book, because it does a good job of divulging the problems Shane has. Yeah, so there you go. Farmers, ranchers, conflict, gunfighters. That's pretty much it. Oh, stop that! We did this gag already! Oh, is it so much to ask for a little joke? Yes! It's stupid and undignified. I won't do it. Would you do it if I let you play Shane next time? Well... Okay. Great. So the reasons this one's a classic? Well, there are numerous reasons. Let's start with the story, the characters, and the acting. The story first. It's a pretty good tale. It's based loosely on the real-life Johnson County Wars, but this one actually has a little more conflict than the actual Johnson County Wars, believe it or not. And you just have a nice dynamic. You have a good guy who's trying to make his way in the world, Joe Sterrett, played by Van Heflin, trying to make a small farm with other small farmers making their way, and trying to build a new sort of civilization, a new community. Then you have Rufus Riker, who's a rancher who's been there forever. He's been in this area, he's used the open range, and now it's being closed off to him, so he legitimately feels his way of life is ending. And he's going to defend that. He's going to fight back. He's going to try to keep that from happening. But he's fighting time itself. So Riker's kind of on the losing side, and he goes too far too quickly with how he escalates the conflict. So he is the villain, but he's an understandable and sympathetic villain. So the story is set up in a nice dynamic between the two characters. And Shane is the wild card, and later Jack Wilson as gunfighters who make the conflict more than what it could have been. It's one of those things that got out of control in a way. It's a conflict that went from a small fight to a huge fight fast. And so the story sets up very nicely between these characters, with nice minor characters, some of the other small farmers, Joe's wife Marion, even little Joey, who the book is told from his perspective, so that's why he's there. Honestly, in the film, you could almost cut him out, and it would have been a big problem. I know I'm nitpicking with that, but I'll get to that in just a second. Let's move on to the characters. And as I mentioned, they're all really good characters. They all have motivations. They all have complexity. Joe is a pretty simple, straightforward guy in a lot of ways, but you get the feeling that he understands things better than he lets on at times. Van Heflin's trying to play sort of the simple-minded, focused farmer, but at the same time, Joe knows what's going on. Joe's a smart guy. Joe's a determined guy. Joe's a principled guy. And people glom onto him as a result. A lot of people want to be Joe's friend. Even Rufus Riker admits to admiration for Joe at one point in the film. And Riker's a good character. He's a villain with motivation. I mean, how often do you get those? Westerns, let me say this, Westerns don't always have good villains. Rufus Riker in this film is a great villain because he's a villain we understand. And he's got motivation. That is really something in these films. He has a reason for doing what he's doing. Acting. Alan Ladd as Shane gives a great performance in this film. He is subtle, he is quiet, he plays a gunfighter. I think you stereotypically think a gunfighter's played, but he does it really, really well. He never goes over the top at any point in his performance. And Van Heflin is Joe. This is Van Heflin is kind of an underrated actor, and he's just great in this. And then Jean Arthur is Mary, and she's good. And then pretty much this is the exception where the whole cast is solid. A lot of times in the 50s, you get a couple good lead performances, and then the supporting cast would be pretty so-so. And there is some bad performance in this one. Let me start with Joey, the son. He's a child actor, and it shows. There's times when his performance is so wooden and so over the top. It's a little distracting. I don't know, should I give a pass for being a child actor? Maybe just a little bit, but it's hard to do because, man, it's bad at times. He delivers this one line in the film where he says, "I love Shane, Mama," and it's just, it's embarrassingly bad the way he delivers it, and I hate to bash the kid too much. In fact, unfortunately, the guy died, I believe, in his 20s in a car wreck in Denver while doing a play, so I hate to knock on his performance too much in this film, but it's just, he is the weak point. I'm just going to warn you now. And what is otherwise a really great all-around film. So I think I made it pretty obvious. There are a lot of good reasons for this one to be a classic, and there it is. So my opinion of this film, well, it's a great movie. It really has strong performances and interesting characters. Hey! You were supposed to call me! Oh yeah, I forgot. You see, I have a problem in that department. I don't really want you here. See if I ever help you again. Whatever. I really like this film. I think it's pretty obvious from the plot summary that there's a lot of things I really like about the film. The characters, the acting, the story. Everything comes together really nicely in this film. I mean, let me talk about some of my minor gripes about the film other than the fact that the little kid that plays Joe, he's not much of an actor. This was shot like in this, I can't remember what the name of the cinema style was, but in this odd little scope. It's supposed to make it look really mountainous because they're supposed to be in Wyoming in the film. It looks bad at times. It's not there's much more beautiful westerns out there with much better landscapes. It makes it kind of look really hazy. It's supposed to make it look big and mountainous, but it makes it just look really like there's fog in the background all the time. And so that's one of the weaknesses of the film. Another weakness of the film is that if you read the book by Jack Schaefer, you'll see that they really couldn't capture all the emotion. They did a good job capturing a lot of it, but they couldn't capture all the emotions and thoughts in Schaefer's Shane. In fact, I would recommend reading the book because I think it gives you more clarity on how this story works. And the story is told in the book from the little kid's perspective. And by the way, here's a little oddity. In the book, his name is Bob. In the movie is Joey. His dad's name is still Joe in the book, but for some reason they decided to go to Joe and Joey instead of Joe and Bob. I'm not sure why that was, but I guess Joey's more of a little kid-sounding name or something. But anyway, I recommend actually reading this book because it's only about 100 pages. It's a quick read, and it's a really solid read. And like I said, it gives you a lot of perspective on the film. It's unusual to say well, you should read a book and then watch the film to sort of put them together. But I think it works. I think Shane gives you a nice visual interpretation of the book. It's a solid adaptation in most ways, but there are things you can glom from the book that will help you with the film. And so maybe I'm cheating a little bit by having read the book and having appreciation for the book and then feeling like it sort of superimposes upon the film. But I really like both. And to be honest with you, I just enjoy watching this film. And every time I see it, I think to myself, wow, this is a really great character study. With very few weaknesses other than the weird cinematography and the one little kid performance. And actually there's a couple of henchmen that are kind of silly and over the top. It's got Ben Johnson in an early role, and it's a role that's much better in the book. And in fact, in the movie, it's almost, like, what's he have to do with anything? Minor gripes. So I really like this film. Does it deserve its rank? Well, yeah, I mean, it's a true classic. No rebuttal on that one? Fine, we'll do this. BigBlackHatMan, come back, BigBlackHatMan. See? Was that so hard? Not hard, but really, really annoying. Boy, I'm gonna destroy you when we review number 2. So what else is new? At any rate, yes, this film deserves its rank. It is a classic. It has been used and reused, and elements taken from it and put into other films. It is a mental battle by a gunfighter to decide what being a gunfighter means. An older gunfighter and a younger gunfighter and a small-time farmer and a big rancher. There's so much contrast and character development in this film. It does things that were used over and over again that they now seem hackneyed. Even though this film came out in 1952, it wasn't hackneyed. It was still new and fresh then. It's great how it sets up everything between the characters. Clint Eastwood remade this film. Pale Rider from '85 is a remake of this film. Open Range, another one of my favorite films, uses elements from this film. There are a lot of films that use elements from this film. It is such an archetype of how the Western should be done. I don't know how to describe it other than that. It really set up so much going forward. It's got historical significance. It's a solid film. There's really very few complaints about it. I mean, the minor ones I have, like the backgrounds being hazy and the one little kid not being all that great an actor, and how they could have used some more elements from the book in some ways to develop a few more of the characters. But these are all minor complaints. This is a really great film. And as you can tell from the video, I really like the end. I don't want to spoil the end for people, but at the end there's famously a little boy standing on the front porch going, "Shane, come back, Shane." So if you didn't get that joke all the way through this video, that's it right there. And I'm sorry because I just kept reusing that joke, but I like the joke. It's probably terrible. I can live with it though, because this movie deserves its rank. So the AFI got this one right. Its placement for me personally might not be quite as high as 3. You'll find out when I do my own top 10 list. So I guess that's all for Shane. Happy trails. We're in for a big conflict in number 2, and watch out for those rough patches. I strongly suspect this episode was lazy writing at its best, since I only wrote one joke and used it over and over and over again. If anybody found it funny, let me know, because I am worried it wasn't funny. It's the problem with using one joke, is if it's not funny, it's never gonna be funny. Okay. Thanks.